today we're going to talk about vocal stamina on the back of last month's iSing article, as it seems to be a big subject these days just because there are so many people trying to deal with stamina issues, whether they be professional, even just voice users like salespeople, and or high-end stars like Adele and people like that often talk about or complain about the schedule: singing plus speaking plus interviews plus God knows what else, probably a bit of drinking and a bit of smoking.
Yeah, and it's the voice is such a delicate instrument, and there are many other instruments that you can smash around and get away with it.
I don't think there are.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, try doing it to a guitar. Do you think you can smash that around and get away with it?
Depends how hard you want to go in. Anyway,
you can tippy tap.
Wow,
on the guitar,
what a start.
Tippy tap. So that's why we started that article. So we just want to go through maybe a few points on that, and we have some notes here to help us out because we want to keep on track. But of course, as you guys know, I'm just going to type a little message in there too that basically everyone said so. Hey, Chloe, Marcello's there. Sup, Marcello? Sup? Gillian's cool. Ian is there.
Yeah, drums. Yeah.
Please ask away. Okay, vocal stamina. Because this is for you people. Okay. So please do ask questions. So looking into vocal stamina, I mean, I'll kick it off, dude. Look what we're looking at. It's an overview of vocal stamina. And by vocal stamina, it's different to other types of physical stamina. Physical stamina itself, especially when it comes to going to the gym, it relates to things more on a muscle fiber level. You know, if you abuse a muscle fiber and if you take it places beyond its normal limitations, you damage it. You can damage it in several ways by stretch, excess blood flow that makes muscle fibers swell and then they burst. And that all creates damage, but the body's response to that is to then repair that damage, but with some extras, some improvements, because it's aware that that repeatedly happens. And that's called hypertrophy, essentially, and that's how muscle builds. But the vocal cords do not work in that way, do they?
No. And it was actually Dr. Reena Gupta who gave us this information when we were in LA last week, and it was actually the fact that if you think about it, the muscles within the voice are not being stressed like they are if you're going to the gym. So it's the added weight that you have in the gym that then adds the stress to the muscle. But obviously the vocal muscles aren't being used in that way. It's more of a neuromuscular thing, and actually the signaling of all of that process that we need to line up as opposed to make a muscle stronger. So that's why it doesn't work quite in the same way as building muscle outside of the vocal tract.
Yes, and so the only reason why we say that is because the word stamina, like we just discussed, relates to that gym principle. But if you take the same principle and apply it to singing, so in the gym, if you push through it, if you bash through it and go into the pain barrier and everything feels pretty rough, you'll usually come out of that at some point, if your nutrition's right and everything else, with an improvement. But with voice, if you damage the muscle fibers in the voice or the structure itself and you push through that, much like physical stamina, you end up with a massive problem. And that was a thread that went out on a forum recently, and it got a lot of action, that thread, because some people feel like it's true. Some people feel like, vocal stamina can be achieved by pushing through the tough times. I think it's more related to when you are presented with tough times singing, you have to find or figure out other ways of singing around that problem, and that could be swelling or edema, as they call it, and other coordination issues. And that's what it relates to. You're not really pushing through it, you're trying to get around it. It can feel like the same thing though, right?
Yes, I guess the question is, how much stamina do I need as a singer? How much do I need to work it? And like anything in singing or in life, it depends. And the main thing is it's however much you need for your particular activity or well, it's obvious, really. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Prolonged. How many gigs do you have to do a week? Can you get through it? Do you want to do more? Do you want to sing harder? Do you want to be able to belt? Do you want to all these different things? It just depends on what you want, really. So then that will then dictate the regime that you'll have to undertake to make that better. You know. So into that, what do we do to make us more durable?
Durable. Okay. Well, I would like to swap out the words durable and stamina for efficient. I think that would be a good.
That's absolutely fine.
And I think we did that in the article. In that, if we increase efficiency in the voice, then we do allow it to perform for longer. And so, by increasing efficiency, we need to first look at how it's coordinated, how the muscles work. And an efficient voice, at best, can use intrinsic muscles to create sound. Intrinsic muscles are the ones within the larynx. They are the vocal cords themselves, and the tiny little structures in there that do adjust pitch and create all the different things that we need, like chord closure, to sing on. So the more that they are isolated, and the more that the extrinsic muscles, the ones on the outside, these are like neck, even shoulders, ones on the jaw, if they are disengaged, then we have efficiency, because muscle itself is alive, it uses energy, and the more muscle that you need to perform a task, then the more energy will be burnt. So that's one side of it, right? Energy efficiency. But also when external muscles get involved in singing, and that is super common, even in experienced singers, when external muscle activity comes in to the voice, it tends to, that tension creates dampening in the sound. It creates problems with the vocal cords vibrating, which then lessens output. And so when output drops, but you want it back, the first thing you do is push at it. Push hard, try and get it back some other way by maybe, changing your tone or increasing the airflow. But then we get into the realms of inefficiency, because that's not really where the power lies. The power lies in good vibration and how we form vowels to boost our voice.
Yeah, totally. And I think I don't think we mentioned this in the article, actually, but that point you made there about overdoing it, and then the point of, oh wow, okay, now I'm a bit screwed, I need to kind of backtrack a little bit. But also I think there's a circumstance that everyone runs into, which is we find a good thing and it feels awesome, and then we go hell for leather. And that feeling of greatness only lasts for 5 seconds. But I think it's really important to live in that feeling of ease and efficiency and weightlessness, whatever you want to call it, for as long as we can, because that acceptance will be the thing that builds the strength in the long run. And that's a really kind of hard psychological barrier, I think, with most singers, is that it may only feel great for a few seconds, and then whether or not we just like that too much and slammed it, or things went wrong. Either way, if we can stay in that moment of greatness for longer, we're going to build strength. We're going to build coordinations, all that stuff, which are going to add to what most of us want at the end of the day, which is more intensity in our singing.
Yes.
Without killing ourselves.
Yeah, and it is a very strange and abstract feeling or notion that often the most power in a sound comes from very little effort, and when people have bad output in their voice, low output, it's usually with a lot of effort.
It's crazy. Even as a teacher of many years, I spent the first part of my teaching years still kind of believing that, when I get high, somewhere up there's got to be a little bit of something going on. I've got to kind of squeeze it. There's got to be a little bit of but
not necessarily.
No, that's not the case. If you want it, of course, introduce it. But at the end of the day, everything can be, and arguably should be, easy. To have the default voice to be able to play around and be creative, right?
Yeah, and like I say, a bit of grab or squeeze or push on the voice and belt some cry. That's all style. That does compromise stamina. Style does compromise stamina. Style is absolutely necessary as a singer, and so depending on which styles you sing will depend on how much you can sing throughout the day, how much you can sing throughout the week, even so, and how much you need to rest and recuperate from certain things. Like some really aggressive rock singing will likely need more rest than, I don't know, some light operatic stuff. You know, it really is a different approach. But if we look at some of the stamina killers, we spoke about those in the article. And like we said, guys, if you've got any questions, send them in. We've got one to approach a bit later on. But stamina killers, there's quite a few out there, but one of the big ones we looked at was something that's called pulling chest, and that is, we don't want to get it into too much. The article does go into exactly what pulling chest means, but it's when someone ascends in their range, gets to the upper part of their bottom voice or chest voice or whatever you want to call it, and then you reach the transition, and the transition itself may not be very well coordinated. It may be hard for you to get over it or get through it without a break or a crack. And in that situation, presented with that, if you're on stage, one of the things that your voice can do for you, or you can choose it yourself, is to do something called pulling chest so you don't break. And that is essentially yell it out. Those vocal cords, they squeeze hard. You can just go, hey! And get that thing out. Sorry about that. Didn't mean to bust that one out. But that is a way of securing a note so that it doesn't crack in the absence of coordination. That particular accent, what am I even saying?
That sounded a little bit. No, it did. It sounded a little bit American.
Did it really?
Yeah.
That coordination, doing that yelly thing too often for too long, creates massive problems in the voice. It recruits a lot of muscle. It creates tension over time. And itself, the vocal cords, when they squeeze and you push against them, like when it happens like that, it can over time shear the outer covering of the vocal cords and start to abuse them in ways that can cause cysts, cause unnecessary blood flowing there, things that are called pathologies, which are nodules too. And so repeated abuse of the voice like that does result in nodules over time. And when you do get a pathology in your vocal cord, like a nodule or a cyst, that particular thing inhibits the vibration of the vocal cord massively. And if you inhibit vibration, you get a drop in output. When you get a drop in output, you might feel you have to push more. Stamina goes right down, and you often find people with pathologies first see a huge drop in vocal stamina. And so that's one of the warning signs. But believe me, I'm not trying to scare anyone. You have to be quite committed to get nodules, don't you?
You do, yeah. But either way, you know, whether you end up with nodules at the end of this long bout, whether it's years or depending on you, it could be months. You know, you never know. But whether or not that actually happens, you're still going to be living in a world of inefficiency. I mean, I could say that, can't I?
Just walking down the street, I live in a world of inefficiency.
You know, that's the truth, isn't it? Let's be honest. Every day, if you're waking up, and we get used to the feeling, and maybe we might get good at working around it. You know, we might get good at working around puffiness and swelling. But are you able to produce a sound that you want to produce? All that kind of stuff really does factor. So really lining things up good is the start of this, and avoiding tension is good. Also avoiding breathiness, that's another killer. Too much airflow is going to have a massive effect on the cords and make things inefficient in the same way. So aside from that, what do we do to actually improve this situation? What can we do? We made a few points in the article, didn't we, about firstly warming up. That's a standard. We've covered that before.
Yeah.
Resetting. If we are feeling like we've overdone it a tiny bit, then it's a case of pulling back a tiny bit, getting it back to the place where we feel things are good. Maybe using one of these is a good start to find our place.
Yeah, because I mean, overuse of the vocal cords can result in pressing, which is kind of like this kind of thing, a stuffy voice, and it can result in a loss of resonance. Resonance starts to leave, the voice kind of goes dull, and using a straw helps your vocal cords to kind of unpress. It gives them a bit of a stretch, and it returns resonance to the vocal tract in a way that when you finish with your straw exercise, or if you look them up, occluded exercises, anything from v to or anything that blocks like a lip bubble, they all help to reset the voice and are quite useful to do several times a day. If you're gigging a lot, resetting the voice is important. Coordination is very important, so a good bridge and being able to relax into parts of your range without yelling or pulling or cracking is really helpful. Rest is underrated. isn't it? Getting
Yeah,
a good night's sleep and just having quiet time. That's what I struggle with personally.
don't get me started with sleep, because I will go. It just affects everything. I mean, from sleep and then on to, I mean, the old stories of Celine Dion, when she has like 2 weeks vocal rest before her gigs, for her performances. She literally doesn't say anything to anyone, apparently. And that makes sense if you consider the vocal cords are these tiny little things that come together and need to make very, very small adjustments. If they're turned into fat little slugs from whether it's sleeping or
fat little slugs,
inflammation.
What does that even mean?
They're just rubbing together, and they're not going to be able to be used in the same way. And if you pay £200 for a ticket to watch Celine Dion and she's got two fat little slugs in her throat, you know what I'm saying?
Oh, I would pay to see the fat little slugs. I'm just there to see the slugs, if that's all right. That's pretty weird. We do have questions in. We'd like to talk about those because some of those might relate to the topics that we're going to talk about anyway. Ian has sent us one. I'll kind of summarise, but
he must know his stuff.
Yeah, he's used words. He's used the word hypertrophy. Probably stole that off of me. But we want to look at tangibility when it comes to training the voice in terms of longevity. So Ian talking about singing for years, essentially. It is necessary to talk about vocal power, but vocal longevity is the key to sustaining career. Correct. As microphones and good monitoring / sound engineer can help us achieve the illusion of power in a gig if necessary. That is so true. So my question is then, if it's not a case of the TA muscle getting into a state of hypertrophy, what am I training? Is it mainly coordination that I'm working on? Question mark. Okay. Do you want to begin? Do you want to take a stab?
He's used the abbreviation TA there. And for anybody that doesn't know, we're talking about very, very scientific singing stuff. Thyroarytenoid.
Thyroarytenoid, which is essentially the vocal cords are like this in the throat, and they close to speak or sing, and then they open. The TA muscle is the one that runs through the vocal cord itself, and it gets stretched by a cartilage that is controlled by a muscle called the CT muscle. And it's stretched by that in order to attain a higher pitch. And that's what the TA muscle is. And when you want stronger sounding vocals, the TA muscle is the one that provides you with a lot of the intensity in the sound. Yeah,
normally dominant in the lower part of the voice. So what are you saying? So if my question is, if it's not a case of the TA muscle getting into a state of hypertrophy, what am I training? So yeah, it's the neuromuscular thing, as we said. It's these pathways that just need to be configured. At the end of the day, I mean, that is what we're doing with any instrument that we play. When we're playing a piano, the fingers doing their thing over and over again, that muscle memory, and lining things up so that it's not something that we have to think about. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
Yeah, coordination is a big one. I mean, everything about singing is coordination, but I do think that although we've spoke about hypertrophy not being applicable when it comes to building up the vocal cords, I do think there is some value in discussing the fact that, for instance, if someone takes a lot of vocal rest, like I think Whitney Houston before her final tour, God rest her soul, she was a legend. She took a month's voice rest, I think. Like almost no speaking. This is apparently, okay, this is the internet talking here. But that does give the voice a chance to atrophy. Atrophy is muscle wastage. And so you can get to that point where muscles can get so thin and weak that actually when you begin to use them again, you can spark some hypertrophy. The voice does get them back up to scratch again, as does other muscles. So there is some legs in that principle. And also when it comes to getting really old, I think we spoke about this last time, calcification of the muscles and problems with the nervous system and not being able to access the muscle fibers properly. By continually training, you do train a part of the nervous system that does signal to the muscles and keeps them healthier for longer. The less you speak when you're older, the more stiff the muscles get. So we can stave that off for sure with vocal training.
And let's be honest, with all of this stuff as well, that we're talking about, in actuality, the studies and research on it is all very limited. So if you're a teacher and you get asked that question, then we're just going on a very, very limited amount of research has happened with the voice. Unfortunately, they don't see the funding
into hobbies.
Yeah,
essentially,
it's not that important, really.
Singing's a hobby.
Yeah.
It's not really. It keeps me in breakfast every day.
So we're more than guessing.
Why did you look at me? I can see you looked at me funny.
We're more than guessing, but just bear in mind that actually all these things we are just going on limited research.
Yeah, and another point I think Ian makes is to do with sound men monitoring all that kind of stuff, and the knock-on effect for that for stamina, especially over a career and whatnot, is singing volume and airflow and how volume relates to the voice. If volume is high throughout someone's singing career, then burnout will be quicker, just because of the amount of intensity, the amount of muscle used, the strength of the vibrations and their effect on their vocal cords, the amount of air needed for volume. Quite often, actually, people who tune vowels well can get a lot of volume without a lot of air, but that's not that common, to be honest with you. So if poor monitoring is present, you often find a singer is pushing too much air anyway to try and hear something back on stage, some reference. It's so, isn't it?
So hard.
Being back in, I mean, we're still in that game of working singer, if you like. There's still gigs every weekend. And if you, do a gig with a band who don't really care for monitoring, you're pretty sure like second set's going to be a nightmare, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. I was in a conversation with somebody about that this afternoon, and in ear monitoring, we've answered it a million times. It's totally the way forward.
Yeah,
it really is for that. And I can't even. If I think back to the days when I didn't have it, there's no chance.
No,
you're in an environment which just doesn't replicate any other environment that you practice in.
Yeah.
So the chance of you getting it right. So.
And can you see, like, in terms of longevity, again with Ian's thing, how much do you feel someone's lifestyle contributes to that?
100%. Everything adds to that, right?
Yeah. Like sleep, like hydration. The more you sing on a dehydrated voice, the more screwed up it gets, right?
How hard is singing?
It's pretty hard, people. It's not like your trumpet gets dehydrated, is it? Don't know about that one. Ian, so I think Ian's given us another message here. So essentially we need to coordinate our voices technically, effective targeted practice, ensuring a good myelin sheath, nice one, will help us to attain what is ambiguously called vocal stamina. And that is correct. The lifestyle and the technique looks after the structure of the vocal cords, the sheath, the lamina propria, all those technical words. And that's how we achieve longevity. Everything can abuse our voice, the technique and the lifestyle. So it is a tricky business. Finding a good teacher who can essentially be a second pair of ears to help us balance our coordination, unbelievably important. Ian's popped that one in as well there.
For that main point that we said about the living in the efficiency, the effortless place. So many times I've seen it, and in the studio, watching other teachers, in fact. And the student will be doing something great, and you'll sit back listening, and they'll be like, "Really, that was the thing? Like, really, that was the thing? That was the good stuff."
But that doesn't feel like anything.
Yeah. How many times have you heard that?
A lot.
Yeah.
And you're like, "No, really, that's cool. That thing is so cool."
Yeah.
And out here, it's super loud.
Yeah. So another pair of ears is perfect.
Yeah. So we have another question from Natalie. Hello, Natalie. After an 8-show week in the theatre, I get tired by Thursday. Should I be relying on vocal massage to get me through, or do I need to consider other avenues? Now, I think vocal massage is a very cool thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's it really is different. Like, we've been to America and it's not popular. It's not easy to get hold of. But in the UK, in London, it seems to be much more popular. And as I understand it, in some shows, I don't know about all of them, but some shows actually offer vocal massage or laryngeal massage as part of the weekly package for their lead vocalists, I'm pretty sure.
And again, we don't know how tight we are when we are walking around this life. We get used to certain feelings, and I would just say to anyone, have a little go yourself. There's loads of videos on YouTube that discuss laryngeal massage and
Keep talking. I'm going to go and get something.
No problem. Oh dear, you're going to pull it out. Who knows where that? Oh. Okay, so and I would just say, but hold the fire with that thing. Be careful because this is a very delicate area. I would say to begin with, laryngeal massage. Maybe get somebody else to do that for you, but massage in terms of here, the face, and under the chin. I had this done for me last week, and it just blew my mind. Even if the one thing you take away today is do that on your face and pull down.
That's one for the montage.
So, looking good.
All awkwardly silent.
And just keep on doing it a few times, and it's not mental, but let's, a little bit of pressure, all the way down a few times, and then just feel how relaxed your jaw is after that. What you got here?
Yeah, this is a vibrator.
Little friend.
And it is a sex toy. Okay, it is. Lynn Hilton, editor of iSing, put me onto this. But that's another way to do a laryngeal massage. There are some good articles on the internet that show you where to place it, but laryngeal massage itself is a way of offsetting extrinsic muscle activity in singing, which can build up over time, and it depends on how long. Sometimes over a week, sometimes over a few months. And if you can spot that extrinsic muscle activity, often it's visible in the neck from maybe veins popping out. That's extra blood flow going to the muscle. So sometimes it's visible there. The one that's really interesting is thumbs under the chin.
Brilliant.
And if you push in there, it might feel a bit uncomfortable, but when you press your tongue against your roof of your mouth, your thumbs get forced out. And there's been quite a few singers over the last few days that have felt some activation of those muscles, which are linked to what the tongue does when they sing through their bridge.
Yeah, so do that. Literally press up there and go, mum, 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 mum.
So if your thumbs feel that activation, they get forced down a bit, then there is some activity extrinsically on the muscles that are controlling the tongue. So, and as weird as it seems, it is possible to consciously control that. Sometimes it might need a massage, that's what a laryngeal massage is for, but some people can actually control that by relaxing the tongue, being very aware of those muscles, and making sure they don't engage. There's also some kind of gaps by the hyoid bone, which is just here. You can often get your thumbs in there, and if those gaps aren't very pronounced, then again extrinsic muscle activity is pulling those gaps closed, and so laryngeal massage is helpful. But laryngeal massage ideally is to offset the problem, but the idea for most singers is to get rid of the problem initially, and so extrinsic muscle activity could be what's causing a problem there, and often related to style. If it's theatre, there's a lot of belting, there's a lot of intensity. Sometimes that belting in terms of technique requires some extra on the outside, or maybe not, and that's what's building up over time. But 8 shows a week is a fair schedule, right?
Fair schedule, yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
So we've got time for one more question.
We got time for one more question. We're going to run over, but I think you guys deserve it after we were so slack. Okay. Do we have
Sarah? Yeah. Let's go to Sarah's question.
Okay. As an Adele tribute, I have to sing like her. But do I get tired?
I do get tired.
I do get tired.
Do I?
Do I? That's not the question, is it? Why is this? What can I do?
Adele. Let's just have a listen to Adele. Let's not listen to her now, but have a listen to her in your own time. She sings hard. She creates a sound that arguably can only is produced by coordinations that may not be the most efficient. Was that a really diplomatic way to say it?
God.
Sorry.
Yeah, let's put that in writing.
I just don't want to get shot down. The point is that look how many albums she's sold, but there's been reports that she has had vocal surgery and things to help her out. So it might have been the smoking, it might have been the way she's using her voice. So if you consider that, we're trying to get a perceived sound as a tribute artist. We're trying to get a perceived sound, and our voice really might not be a voice that can create that sound. So then we go and do things that can create that sound. That's what we kind of do all the time as singers, I think. Well, a lot of the time anyway. We do things that we want to hear. And so trying to recreate the Adele sound,
it's a tricky one.
It could have its issues. So what you suggest is that, look, sing those songs. Can you sing those songs in a very efficient way without any problems? Can you sing them over and over again and then wake up the next morning and feel absolutely fine? If you can, then that's brilliant. It means that as a default your voice is working well. But then you may just need to make the choices and see how much you want to cost your voice on every performance. Do you add that bit of Adele? How much can you get away with? Can you make it your mission to see how much you can mimic her sound, but in an efficient way? It's really hard to be able to do that, but definitely worth considering going forward.
Yeah.
Efficiency first, jumping in and out of the Adele thing.
Yeah, I think it's important that you know that, what Steve said there was partly down to, you have to kind of check it in the morning or even on the night. I remember singing some gigs before where I was sure that I was doing bad things, and I've woke up the next morning and my voice has been absolutely fine. And I'm like, that's strange. But I guess long term it's good for me to figure out why that was at times. What was it about that performance that was really intense but not abusive on my voice? But the main point was, if I'm constantly looking at my voice and detecting what I did the night before, what it feels like the next few days, is it totally rough and hard to deal with? Then it probably did cost me. But you are you, I am I, he is him, right? If we try and be someone else vocally, then we come away from what is our voice's balance. It doesn't even have to be Adele. It doesn't have to be yelling or anything abusive. It just has to be not you, and in some way that is going to affect how efficient your voice is as you're coming off the level. So if you are a tribute artist of any kind and you're having to sing high pitches, for instance, that is going to come with some stamina issues, and how much issue that is may never be enough. But when it comes to range, if you're singing certain artists like Michael Jackson, it was a really interesting point from Dr. Ingo Tietze last week that looking at the amount of vibrations per second, which results in frequency, of certain pitches, the higher in pitch you go, the more vibrations per second there are to achieve that pitch. As that number goes up, stamina goes down.
Right.
And it was really, really interesting that singing, I can't remember the exact pitches, but say a comfortable note in chest voice, you could sing, I think it was for 6 hours straight or something like that, never stopping, before you would see some signs of fatigue. But when you took that note to something like a C5, I can't remember, but it was a doable note for a high tenor, but it was pretty high. If you were to sing on that note, we're looking at like 20 to 30 minutes of singing at those pitches, and that's not bad technique. It's just the fact that the voice can't take that many vibrations per second for that sustained amount of time without sustaining some vocal damage. Some, don't know how much. I mean, they're not big studies, but that's another thing to consider.
Well, look at that, and it throws up the conversation about the how much harder it may be for females to sing the males. We've got a harder job.
Yeah.
It's easy for us, really.
Yeah.
The singing thing.
Glad, really. Most of life is, isn't it?
On that note.
So I'm just checking to see if there are any more input from these people, but that appears to be it. So thank you to Ian, Natalie, and Sarah for your questions. We'd like to just give you a bit of an update on what's going on in the next iSing article. So we are going to be talking about passaggio / bridges, okay, which are the often the talk of the town when it comes to technique, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yes. And in that issue, we will go into that. There'll be video content. There'll be ways at looking at developing that part of your voice. There'll be plenty on vocal health. Another bunch from Josh Alamu, the wonderful style coach. There's an interview from Wendy Moten, who sung "Come On In Out of the Rain." What else did she sing? Can't remember. She was in 20 Feet from Stardom, I think, as a backing vocalist. So there's a whole bunch in the next article, which comes out, I think, next month. So, and of course, we will do another webinar free on ways to develop the bridge and or passaggio for you guys again.
Big topic.
Big topic. So yeah, please do get along to see us at thenakedvocalist.com if you want to leave us any messages. We're on Facebook too. But thanks again for attending, Marcello. Thank you, Marcello, for your message. Thanks for attending. Sorry we were late.
Won't happen next time.
And we will catch you another time.
Good night.